Road, which is looking at the symbolism, the beautiful allegory of the story of the Wizard of Oz. Let's get into today's message, Destroying Your Wizards. Thank you, Soul 21, for your powerful ministry, for raising the vibration in the space. I say it often, the story of your life is the story that you write. You can write any story. And so if the story that you've been writing is a story where you always fail, is the story that you write that your relationships never work out, that you're always making mistakes and you're always being seen through the lens of your mistakes, write a new story. Yes. Literally write a new story. Take out a piece of paper and write your life the way you want it to be. Because that's what we're doing. We're imagining, we're creating, we're projecting our thoughts onto this canvas that we call life. Write it the way you want it to be. Write it the way you want it to be. Oh, good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. How's everybody feeling? Awesome, awesome. So we're going to move right in because we've been talking this month, Follow the Yellow Brick Road. We've been looking at the story of the Wizard of Oz and the wonderful symbolism of this powerful allegory. On week 1, we started with leaving Kansas, recognizing that Kansas is an identification with the material world, with the physical world. And because the story is really about this path to illumination, this path to enlightenment, this path to recognizing that we're actually divine and finding the divine within us, we have to leave this physical idea of ourselves. We have to transcend the material world and go over the rainbow. So we talked about that in the first week, and we talked about a few different symbolisms there. Last week, listen to Toto. And we talked about the symbolism that Toto actually represents Dorothy's inner wisdom, inner voice. And if we look in the story, we see that Toto was always guiding Dorothy easily and effortlessly. It was Toto that actually found the Yellow Brick Road. It's Toto that always escaped from the clutches of the witch, even when the witch tried to hide Toto in a basket. It was Toto that found the wizard and pointed Dorothy and her friends to the fact that there was just this man behind a curtain, this silly little man behind a curtain that was tricking them all, and he really had no power. Toto is our inner voice and our intuition. We must listen to Toto, and it's important that we have someone like Toto, that we have intuition and inner guidance, because when we leave Kansas, we go into an unknown world. We go into Oz, which can feel fantastic, but also weird, and it's definitely not like home. So we need to have someone or something that's with us. And so as I was thinking about where we're moving forward to in this week, I was reminded of the powerful teacher, Pema Chodron, Buddhist teacher. And there's something that she says as we're thinking about this idea of leaving Kansas and, of course, Dorothy moving into Oz and the craziness that comes with Oz. She talks about the fact that this is really how life works. She says to be fully alive, fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. To live fully is to be always in no man's land, to experience each moment as completely new and fresh. To live is to be willing to die over and over again. And we talked about in the first week that the symbolism of that tornado was actually about being caught up in that cycle of death and rebirth, recognizing that we have to get rid of this idea of the material, which is really what the crucifixion is about. It's the death of the limited to resurrect and to rise again into the unlimited. So we recognize that this is what's constantly necessary. And so regardless of where you are in your life, regardless of what we may have achieved in our life, regardless of what we may have unfolded in our life, there is something within us that's calling for more. There's something within us that's calling us to expand, to grow to a new space, to die over and over again. So I thought it was important here to talk a little bit about Dorothy because, of course, she's an interesting character. She's the central character, and she represents ourselves. Now, as we talk about this path towards enlightenment, I think it's very interesting her age. Do we know how old Dorothy is in the story? We kind of get confused because Judy Garland and Diana Ross played Dorothy, and so it doesn't really work out, right? But in the story, Dorothy is actually 12 years old. Interesting, right? Now, I'm sure many of you know and understand that in Judaism, of course, 12 is the age where you're going to receive your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. You go on to 13, you become a man, you become a woman, right? And so it's very important that Frank L. Baum made her the age of 12, recognizing that she was moving into a new phase of life, moving into a new stage of life. There's also something interesting, this idea of her slippers. Now, in the movie, what color are her slippers? They're red. They're ruby slippers, right? But not in the story. In the story, they're actually silver. So the Wiz got it right with the silver slippers. And why that's important, is because this represents an ancient idea that there was a silver cord that ties our physical self to our eternal or non-physical self. We even see this even in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes. It says, before the silver cord is snapped, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the breath returns to God who gave it. So there was an ancient understanding that what's tying us to this physical world and connecting us to the non-physical world is this silver cord. So that's why she had silver slippers on, right? Because that was a representation of that beautiful understanding and idea. Now, Dorothy also has 3 friends, yes, that she meets along the way. She meets the Scarecrow first, then the Tin Man, and then the Lion, right? Now, these 3 characters are also aspects of herself or aspects of you. And of course, we know that each of them was seeking something, right? The Scarecrow wanted brains. The Tin Man wanted a heart. And the Lion wanted courage. And if we look to the story, we find out that they actually had what they were looking for all along. Yes? Cool. But as I said last week, I said we're going to talk about the wizard. Somebody asked on Facebook, because some of the stuff was posted that I talked about in leaving Kansas, and somebody asked, well, what about the wizard? I want to know, what does he represent? And I promised you all that we would talk about the wizard today. But in talking about the wizard, we're going to destroy the wizard. Is that okay? Can we destroy the wizard? All right. So if we look at the wizard, the wizard is an interesting character, right? Because first, the wizard is described as the great and powerful Oz, right? The wizard is great and powerful. What's also interesting, if you look at that encounter when they first meet the Wizard of Oz, and he says, I am the great and powerful Oz, introduce yourselves. And Dorothy comes up and she says, well, hi, I'm Dorothy, the small and meek, right? Because there is a recognition that within the story, what Frank L. Baum was really doing, this idea of Oz, this idea of the Wizard of Oz, was actually a representation of our traditional understanding of the Judeo-Christian God, Yahweh, Jehovah, right? There's this traditional understanding that God is someone that we have to approach with fear and trembling. It's said that God is a mighty consuming fire. And of course, when we meet the Wizard of Oz, there's fire and there's smoke and everybody's scared. Again, what does Dorothy say? She says, hi, I'm Dorothy, the small and meek. Has anybody ever been taught that that's how you're supposed to approach God? That I'm the small and weak, you're the great and powerful God, the great and powerful Oz, the great and powerful Yahweh, the great and powerful Jehovah, and I'm just this small little person, and there's something that I need, and I hope you can give it to me, please, oh wonderful, powerful Oz, right? And of course, that character evokes a lot of fear. I remember as a kid, when I got to that scene, I was always scared. I was terrified. Like, that was awful. After all of these wonderful things that happened, you finally get to the Emerald City, and even that was cool because, they got all dressed up and everything. They were prepared, right, to go and meet the great and powerful Oz, and then he was mean. And not only was he mean, then the instruction was, yeah, I'll give you what you want, but you got to go kill somebody first, right? Interesting, right? Very interesting. And so what I understand is that because L. Frank Baum was using the symbolism of Oz to represent this understanding or one thought about who and what God is, that we have to actually get rid of that story. Because we can't ultimately find the truth. We can't get home until we understand or get rid of that story. And so that's why we're going to destroy our wizards today. And so it took me to a quote from one of my favorite teachers, absolutely favorite teachers. It's Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth. And he says this. He said, the image of God becomes the final obstruction. Your God is your ultimate barrier. Think about that for a second. Your God, your concept of God, right? Your image of God, that becomes the final obstruction. And this is interesting, right? Because this was the last thing that Dorothy comes up against, right? Her image of God, this story that she had been told about this great and powerful Oz that would save her, this story that she was told and her friends were told about this great and powerful Oz that would give them things that they already possess, right? She had to ultimately see the great and powerful Oz as a fraud in order to move forward. So what I want to share with you, I want to look at three wizards, because when we understand that L. Frank Baum was using this symbol of the wizard kind of to represent the Judeo-Christian story of God, what I recognize is that we've created gods or wizards in our lives out of a lot of different things. And so, maybe you've surpassed that understanding and you don't hold the same understanding of a literal God that is judging you, as we talk about so often. Pastor Yolanda says God is not Santa Claus. It's not holding a record of your naughty and nice list. Maybe you've gotten past that, but there are other things that you've made wizards in your life. And so it's time for us to destroy those wizards. Now, I'm going to start with one that's absolutely familiar. It's just your concept of God itself. We were watching this week, I don't know if you all have seen it, there's a powerful documentary on the life and career of Allen Iverson that was on Showtime this year. It's a powerful, powerful depiction of his life, and if you don't know his story, a lot really happened. He's just incredibly talented. In high school, he was a two-sport athlete. In football, he was the running back, the quarterback, defensive back. He won state championships in high school. He was a champion point guard. He was considered literally one of the best in the country at a very young age. But then something unfortunate happened. While he was at the height of his high school career and definitely was destined, he could have gone to any college that he wanted to play Division I basketball or football, something happened and he was arrested. The reasons he was arrested were actually untrue, right? He was accused of assaulting someone. It wasn't true. It's not what happened. But part of because his notoriety was such that that sort of made him a target. And so he was sentenced to jail. As a high school student, sentenced to jail and was tried as an adult, actually. And so it was terrible. And so as he was going through this experience, he says that he talked to his grandmother, and he asked his grandmother, he said, "Why is God allowing this to happen to me?" And she said, "Don't question God." And he said, "I never did, yet again." Now, eventually he did get out. He was granted clemency by then Governor Doug Wilder, and he, of course, went on to Georgetown, played for 2 years in Georgetown, and went on to play with the Philadelphia 76ers. But I recognize that something happened with him based on that story, because he has a concept of God that you can't question God. And so his life, if you know anything about his life, is kind of played out a certain way. He's been depicted as a thug. He has been arrested several times throughout his NBA career. And even now there are rumors, although they say it's not true, about his financial situation and kind of how he's living life. But if you look at him now at 40 years of age, he looks like he's 50 or 60 and like he's just been through so much. And I recognize that as I looked at his story, I said his God concept is what got him all turned around and messed up, because he was given this God concept that you cannot question God. Again, just like the great and powerful Oz, that you come to the great and powerful Oz and you ask for the great and powerful Oz to bestow something to you, and then he may give you some other command to go and kill somebody. Or I love how it's depicted in The Wiz that in that opening scene when they're in the Emerald City, he keeps changing his mind, right? That, first I think they start with the color red, and then he's like, "I changed my mind, we're going to green." And everybody just complies, right? Just like, well, this is what the Wiz said, so I guess I got to change my clothes now and do all these things. Nobody questions the foolishness of it. And then they go from green, he said the ultimate yellow brick is gold. So then they singing about gold, right? Because that's what the Wiz says, right? That's what the wizard says. That's what this great and powerful Oz says. That's what this God concept of ours says. But what I recognize is that when we have this concept of God, when we have this concept of God that cannot be questioned, when we have this concept of God that is judging us, when we have this concept of God that is outside of us, we are limited in our lives, because the truth is, God, first of all, this word, and I'm using the word God, use whatever words you want, spirit, source, divine, it really doesn't matter, right? Why doesn't it matter? Because the second you use the word God, you've created a box. It's limited. The word itself is limited. Because if I say God, that may mean something to you different than it means to me. right? For so often in my life, I got to this place where I didn't like the word God because I didn't like what it was associated with, right? I didn't want to say God because it may be associated with a version of Christianity that wasn't a version that I was actually cool with, right? At the time, I considered myself a mystical Christian or a Gnostic Christian. And so to say God wasn't really telling people what I was really all about. So I stopped using the word, right? But in the process of not using that word, I was cutting myself off from access to the power that's behind the word, right? And so I recognized that I had to begin to develop a new relationship. I had to destroy that old wizard in order to come into a new relationship with this idea of who and what God is, but recognize that God is beyond the words. Every word is a metaphor. God is beyond the religion. Every religion is a metaphor. God is beyond the altars. Every altar is a metaphor. God is beyond the symbols. Every symbol is a metaphor. But what's important to recognize is, again, don't cut yourself off from the experience of God. Because once you experience God, then I was saying to Pastor Yolanda yesterday, once you tap into that place of the experience of God, you can walk into a mosque and you will find God. You can walk into a synagogue and you will find God. You can walk into Celebration Spiritual Center and you will find God. You can walk on the corner, on the subway. You can go to work and you will find God because you recognize that God is not a name. God is an experience and God lives within you. Oh my God. God lives within you. And that's the power. That's the wizard that we must destroy, though, because, again, that may not be the story that we've been given. If we've accepted that story, as Dorothy accepted that story, that I need to be saved. I'm somewhere that I've never been before. I need to be saved. I'm in this strange place with munchkins. I need to be saved. I'm in this place with flying monkeys. I need to be saved. But the truth is, everything you needed was already within you. Yes, yes. So what's another wizard? I love this one. The wizard of knowledge and information. Now, what's interesting about that, knowledge is a good thing. Information is a good thing. Wisdom is a good thing. Reading is a good thing. But what I've come to understand, and I've been in this place in my own life, is that knowledge and information can keep us out of experiencing the good that we desire, can keep us out of experiencing our dreams. Right? Because so often what we do, our libraries are full. Yes, yes? We got plenty of books. We got Eckhart Tolle. We got Marianne Williamson. We got Michael Beckwith. We got A Course in Miracles. We got all these different books. Yes, yes? In our libraries, right? But the truth is you only need one book to change your life. One bit of information can absolutely change your life. We don't need 1,000 books, but so often what happens is that becomes our status symbol, right? Well, I'm conscious. Well, I'm enlightened. Well, I'm metaphysical. So, I got all of these different things, and I'm representing who and what I am. But meanwhile, your life is not reflecting that you've absorbed any of that knowledge. And so then we've made our libraries. We've made these books. We've made these authors, these teachers that we worship. We've made them our wizards now. Intellectualism, informationalism, right? It just becomes another wizard. It's time to even destroy that wizard. I talked about Pema Chodron earlier. She says, pick a path, any path, and go deeper. Yes. You only need one book. You only need one path. You don't need, 1,000 books in your library. It's wonderful. I read a book every day, so please hear me. I'm not saying don't read, right? I love reading, but I just recognize that that's not the thing that allows me to succeed in my life. Right? Information is wonderful. I love to grow in my thought and in my life, but I recognize that because these principles are really so simple, it's the reason that a child can apply these principles and live in prosperity. It's the reason that somebody that only has a 5th grade education can take these principles and live victoriously. Right? If information and intellectualism and reading and studying, if that was really what it was all about, we'd be in trouble. We would absolutely be in trouble. And so this is why Jesus says so beautifully, suffer little children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom. Except you become like a little child, you can't enter the kingdom. You can't enter this realm of everlasting good. You can't enter this place of prosperity, right? And so if it requires us to become like little children, that means that, we don't have to have these vast libraries. It means that we don't have to read every book that comes out. You got enough books. Use what's already there and read it and absorb it, though. Absorb it and begin to live from that place. Destroy the wizard of information and knowledge. It's just another trick, right? It can get us caught up, right? It's just another way to get us out of actually applying what we're learning. I've said it many times, and I love being here at Celebration Spiritual Center, and it's an opportunity for us to remember what is true. But in truth, if we never shared another message, If we never taught another class, there is enough that has been shared that's out there. You can take any one message and transform your life. Any one series, and your life would never be the same if you absolutely take it with faith and apply it and live it, right? That's absolutely true. But we come here every week because we need to be reminded. I need to be reminded, right? That's why we come every week. And then finally, we have the third wizard of guilt, shame, and unworthiness. And this takes us back to the story of the Wizard of Oz. Because as we know, and as we talked about it, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Lion, they were seeking something that they already possessed. They were seeking something that they already possessed from something external to them that was a fraud, right? That wasn't even real, right? Dorothy was seeking something. She was trying to get home, but yet she had the means to get home all along through those slippers, those silver slippers, ruby slippers that were on her feet, right? And what I recognize is that what was really underneath that idea, again, if this was really Dorothy seeking a brain, a heart, and courage, if this is really us saying that, oh, I need to be smarter in order to be divine or enlightened or to experience prosperity. Oh, well, I haven't forgiven enough, or I haven't learned really how to forgive. I need to open up my heart more, and then I can be prosperous, right? Or, oh, this fear thing, I'm just afraid. I just don't know, right? But all this time, what they were really saying, because they possessed it already, they were saying that I'm not enough. Yes. That's what they were saying. They were saying, I'm unworthy, I'm not enough. Because the Scarecrow was smart, right? At every hand, he proved that he was smart. The Tin Man was the most loving, beautiful individual. I wanted to call him a human being, but one of the most beautiful individuals. His heart was so big. It was so open, right? He was living in that place of the heart chakra. And the Lion, even though he was pitiful at times, when push came to shove, the Lion showed courage, didn't he? He was telling a story that he didn't have courage. He was telling a story that he was fearful. But the truth is, courage lived within him. He had believed this story that people had told him for so long, and he was kicked out of the jungle, but that was just a story. This idea of shame, blame, and unworthiness, this idea that I'm not enough, that I don't have what I need to prosper, Pastor Greg. I really do. I want to prosper. I want to do things in my life. I want to open a new business. I want to have children. I want to have a new relationship. I want to grow my finances. I want to just live passionately. But you know what? I don't have enough. I'm not enough. I need more brains. I need more heart. I need more courage. That's a wizard of unworthiness. That's a wizard of shame. That's a wizard of blame. And I encourage you, or I even challenge you in this moment to think about, where did that story come from? Did it originate from you, or did somebody tell you that one day? Right? Sometimes the difference, as we're growing up as kids, the difference can be between a teacher that says to us that you matter, a teacher that believes in us. I'm thinking about so many of my teachers, my music teachers, that they believed in me. They encouraged me when my songs weren't good. They encouraged me when I really didn't know how to play and I was making a lot of mistakes. They encouraged me when I really wasn't singing that well, but they kept giving me opportunities. I recognized that was the difference between me becoming a great musician versus taking on a story of, oh, I'm not good enough. Taking on a story of, yes, so-and-so is really better than me. They always get the opportunities, right? And so it's wonderful when we have those elders or those teachers in our lives that do that. But unfortunately, so many of us have had the opposite story. Yes, yes? That someone, whether it was a parent or some other elder or caregiver or a teacher, that in a moment when we made a mistake, they labeled us as that mistake. In a moment where we failed, we were labeled as a failure, and we internalized that. In that moment when we did something that was displeasing to someone for some reason, we then internalized that, oh, this is who I am, and I always displease this person, and we began to create that story over and over and over and over again in our relationships, or we create it when we're at work, because now we're disappointing our boss all the time, right? But if we look back, it's the same story that we had with our mother. Right? So we recognize that this is just another wizard, another false wizard, and I'm here right now, I'm Toto, I'm pulling back the curtain. There's a man behind the curtain pulling the controls. He's fake, y'all. Those thoughts, I'm pulling the curtain. Those thoughts are not true. I'm pulling the curtain. Those thoughts are illusions. Those thoughts are fake wizards. Destroy your wizards. Yes. Whatever it is, if it's your God concept, And I'll go back to that for a second because I also have recognized that within New Thought and within metaphysical movements, many times this is the biggest hump that we have to get over, right? Because that concept of God was drilled into us in so many different ways that it's still hard for us really to believe that God loves us, that the universe loves us unconditionally, that we're actually never judged by our mistakes. And anything that we put out there, the universe just says yes, amen, and agrees with us. It doesn't judge us, right? Sometimes it's really hard to believe that because of the story that we've been told, right? I've seen that so many times amongst friends who may have come out, LGBT. You may come out. That's a beautiful moment of courage, right? But still, there's a part of you that's still living in a place of shame because you've come out, but you still kind of feel like, oh, I'm being judged, right? Oh, well, I don't really know if I'm good with God. Like, I'm choosing to live this way, but the universe is still judging me, right? And so anytime a mistake happens or something bad happens or something wrong happens, you're kind of concerned because you're like, oh, no, maybe they were right. I've had that experience in my own life in situations where I've made huge mistakes, and then if something is happening in my finances, I'm like, oh, my God, God was judging me. Oh, I messed up, right? You ever had that? Is it just me? You ever had that experience, right? Well, all of a sudden you feel like, oh, no, God is judging me. Right, that's that old story. We're pulling back the curtain. There's a man with controls and special effects. That's all it is. It's an illusion, y'all. But beautifully, it's up to us to actually accept that. It's up to us to actually begin to write the new story. So that's why we talked about in the song, letting go. We got to let go. We got to let go. Let go of the shame, let go of the blame, let go of the lies, let go of the years, let go of the times that you cried for whatever reason. You can let it all go. But it requires that, not that you just let it go and have an empty space, but now you have a blank slate. Begin to write what you want. And again, literally write the story. Because you're the author of your life. No one else is. You may have given someone else the pen. You may have let them write the story. And then you took that sheet of paper and read it as if it was who and what you are, as if it were your words. Don't give anybody else that pen anymore. Yes. And begin to write the story absolutely as you want it to be. That's how much power you have. That's what you're doing now, even as we're co-creating this moment, but that's what you're doing now throughout your life. I love to play this game sometimes with my daughter when we're spending time. I say, you know, what do you want to experience today? Let's just set an intention for something that we know it can only happen because we said it, right? And so, like, if we're going to Coney Island, I'll say, you know, we're going to get free hot dogs. Just something crazy, right? And then all of a sudden, we're not even thinking about it again because we're in joy and we're on roller coasters and bumper cars and all that good stuff. And all of a sudden, you realize I paid for the hot dog, but the woman only charged us for one. And I was like, look, Mal, we got a free hot dog. Look at us. We're powerful, right? We write our own story, y'all. I said it last week, and I say it all the time. I can't talk about what I don't know, right? I can't be like the wizard and sell you a fake dream, yes. Right? But I can be like the good witch and point you back to yourself. Yes. I can be like the good witch and tell you you had it all along. I can be like the good witch and speak to the evil witch and say, you have no power here, be gone. Yes. Because that's the truth of these illusionary stories. So with that, let us stand. And I do want to share this last quote from Joseph Campbell as he talks about our God concept. He says, there is a definition of God which has been repeated by many philosophers. God is an intelligible sphere, a sphere known to the mind, not to the senses, whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. And the center, Celebration Spiritual Center, is right where you're sitting. And the other one is right where I'm sitting. And each one of us is a manifestation of that mystery. Yes. If you want to know where God is, look at yourself. Hafiz said, I wanted to kiss the face of God, so I lifted up my hand and kissed myself. Yes. If you want to tap into the divine, kiss yourself. Lift up your hand and kiss yourself. There is God. There is the divine. There is everything that you've been looking for. And so, Mother, Father, God, we stand here in awareness that we may have believed in some fake wizards. but we are choosing to destroy those illusionary ideas. We speak to all of those thoughts that represented the fake wizards in our lives, and we remind them that they have no source, they have no root, they have no power, they have no mother, they have no father. We speak to them and remind them that they are darkness, and we simply bring light to the situation. When we bring light to the situation, darkness flees immediately, without any fight, without any push, without any struggle. And so we bring the light of awareness here and now to the recognition that we are free. We bring the light of awareness here and now to the recognition that we have everything we need. We bring the light of awareness to the recognition that we've had it all along and that the divine lives within us. And so we make a choice here and now to live out this week from that awareness. We make a choice this week to live victoriously from that awareness. We make a choice here and now to live in absolute freedom, to live with no judgment, to live with no struggle, to live with no shame, to live with no blame. I'm grateful for the souls here that are assembled in this room, in this space, and with the sound of my voice. And I know that we will live out this week from a place of victory. We will live out this place in complete prosperity. We will live out this week in abundance. Together with expectation, we lift up our voices as we release these words. And each of us, we say amen, amen. Ashe. And so it is. Thank you, God. Yes, yes.